Hello, welcome to Raven Talk, Raven's online conversation with writers, artists, and cultural warriors. Today we are talking with Samoan writer and cultural activist, Penina Ava Taesali, and Puerto Rican poet and visual artist, Nitza M. Hernandez-Lopez. I'm Phoebe Boucher, the managing editor of Raven Chronicle Press, a Seattle shoreline-based independent press and literary organization publishing writing and art since 1991. First, we acknowledge that we live, work, and play on the unceded and traditional territories of the Coast Salish peoples, and that we occupy this land. This acknowledgement does not take the place of authentic relationships with Indigenous communities, who are very much still here, but it serves as a step in honoring the land we occupy and as an act of resistance against the erasure of their histories. We'd like to thank the many co-sponsors of this and other Raven events this year: for Culture of King County, the City of Seattle's Office of Arts and Culture, and the Washington State Arts Commission with NEA funding for project support. Samoan writer, poet, educator, and cultural arts activist Penina Ava Taesali is the author of Sourcing Siapo, a book of poetry from the University of Hawaii in 2016. Her chapbook, Summons, Love Letters for the People, was published by Hawaii Review in April of 2018. Her poem, What Kind of Times Are These?, was chosen by the American Academy of Poets Poem a Day series in May of 2022. For 9 years, she worked as an artistic director for the Oakland Asian Cultural Center, where she founded the Asian Pacific Islander Youth Promoting Advocacy and Leadership, Taking Roots Art Collective, a youth arts education organization. During her time at OACC, she co-founded the Pacific Islander Kie Association, the first and only Pacific Island nonprofit in Oakland. She was a featured poet for the KPFA FM Best Spoken Word Millennium series. She earned an MFA in writing from Mills College, and after her mother died, she moved from Oakland, California to Salem, Oregon, where she currently lives with her husband and her 3 cats, Medli, Timmy, and Squeakers. And any mispronunciations, she can correct after I'm through. Second, we have Nitza M. Hernandez-Lopez, also known as Nitza Hernandez, is a distinguished bilingual Puerto Rican poet and visual artist who has lived in Salem, Oregon for 12 years. Holding a PhD in communication arts from the University of Wisconsin-Madison and retired from the University of Puerto Rico, Nitza boasts a successful career as an educator. Her poetry has graced the pages of various printed and online anthologies and journals in English and Spanish. Adding a unique dimension to her literary expression, she takes on the role of translator for her work. This skill enhances the depth and breadth of her creative endeavors. Nitza has received poetry awards from the Oregon Poetry Association, among others. As a visual artist, some of her art pieces have been exhibited in Oregon art galleries and published in several print and online poetry anthologies. In a recent milestone, she celebrated the publication of her inaugural book of poetry in Spanish, and she'll tell us about that. Now we're joined by Nitza and yeah.
Thank you, Phoebe. First, we would like to acknowledge that we reside on Indigenous lands, the Kalapuya traditional homelands of the Willamette Valley. And we want to say too, Phoebe, we are grateful for you to invite us to your podcast. Fafatai Telilava, Phoebe, and to my dear friend Nitza, to Fafatai. We'd also like to dedicate our poems that we're going to read today to the besieged people of Palestine. My beloved father, and Nitza would like to say something too.
Thank you, Phoebe, for inviting us to this podcast, Penina, particularly for you extending that invitation to me. I feel very honored and humbled to be here with you too. And I will like also to dedicate this event to the Palestinian people, especially to those women and children who have perished in the war, and also to my homeland, to the people of Puerto Rico and the people in the Caribbean archipelago and in the diaspora.
Whafatai. Whafatai means thank you in Samoan, okay? We're gonna kind of have a conversation about our poetry and how we got here. And we're gonna start with two short poems. I'm gonna read a poem called Praise Wings. Praise Wings. Praise swallowtail butterfly, fluttering quiet jubilees inside the turquoise breeze. Praise morning dove, thrush me close to the earth to inhale her fragrant juniper, pinyon, and sage. Praise purple martin gliding with poise inside the void. Praise housefinch, teach me to accept what is. Praise brown pelican, lead me where the fish abound, so I may feed my innermost sea. Praise black, yellow striped bumblebee, remind me to dance my dance of the rose hip honey. Praise mockingbird, where is my song? Strengthen my courage to trust my voice, to be part of that glorious and precious human choir. Praise dancing blue dragonflies, teach me how to make love so that I may feast with my beloved. Praise Rufus hummingbird, come back soon with your bursting suns of gold. Let my hummingbird laughter be all that matters. Praise red-tailed hawk, take me to those vortexes high above the mountain peak so I can hear my ancestors. Praise barn owl, humble me, show where to spot the light in the darkest of rooms so I may continue to cup my tiny flame.
Beautiful praise poem.
Yeah, it's so beautiful, Penina. I just wanted to make a few comments about this poem of yours, Penina, because I've heard you reading it like a couple of times, but today when I read it, you know, it's different when I can read it twice and 3 times again. And I love the use of the anaphora that you use, you know, praise, that word for every verse. It gives a beautiful rhythm and emphasis. And the word praise itself is so powerful because it's like celebrating life. You're inviting us to, the reader, you know, to give that celebration, that gratitude to nature, and what you're asking for yourself, it's much more learning, much more understanding. For me, that poem is like a prayer, like a meditation. And it shows your deep connection to nature and what birds and other flying creatures have teach you and what they are telling you or what would you like them to do. It's a conversation with them, like you're pleading them to grow your knowledge and your inner power and love. So thank you for reading it and writing it. I love it. So I'm going to read mine, that it's called New Seeds, and I just want to make a brief comment. This poem is published in the Salem Means Peace Anthology of 2023, edited by poet Eleanor Berry, as part of the Save the Salem Peace Mosaic project. We had a poetry workshop last year as part of the project, and it took place at the Bush Barn Art Gallery, where was an exhibition of different artists. That gallery is managed by the Salem Art Association. And there I got inspired by a beautiful painting by artist Tammy Jo Wilson called She Became the Seed. So my poem, which I called New Seeds, is a kind of anachronistic poem, I would say, since I got very inspired while appreciating the painting. And it says, we remember who sowed us in the soil They were kind-hearted kindred spirits from a blue-purple sky. We are seeds in moving stillness, immersed with water in the ground. The curvatures of our tiny bodies softly cracking out, opening from the heart of earth, quietly emerging as liberated seeds, connecting our roots and rising up, growing stems and emerald leaves, unfurling from the ground up. Our tears overflowed to cleanse distress. Slowly we transformed from pain, and our souls now dance like butterflies. Black, brown, indigenous women, our new sprouts merging with those of other women on earth, all blossoming as one, a universal garden of light, an orange sun as our only breath, our guardian flame. We follow the deep rumbles of our drums to make beauty and feed justice in the world with loving, peaceful songs.
Beautiful.
Beautiful,
Beautiful.
Nitza.
Thank you.
So I just love that poem, and I can see the whole painting while you read. I wanted to now kind of transition just a tiny bit into just asking you some questions, Nitza. I know you just returned from Puerto Rico, where you had your debut of your brand new book, and it was your birthday, and this, you're going back home to your homelands, and you did a lot of events there, and so I want to just like ask you just a few things, and I am going to ask you to read from your book. The first poem, I think, is in your book, A Woman of Color Am I? And then I want to ask you just a few questions of why poetry? What was your journey for this book? Okay.
Yes, well, let me show the book
Yes.
so that people can see it. Oops, there it is, yes.
Oh, there it is. Yeah.
Yes, I'm very proud of this book. I worked 3 years in a row, organizing it and editing and doing all the things that require to be published. But the book has poems that I wrote a long time ago, since, probably 37 years ago. It was a book that I kept postponing through life. Probably I could have like 2 or 3 chapbooks from the whole collection, but I was always so involved in my job, my professional life, and taking care of my parents when they were growing older, then of my kids, and my profession, really absorbed my life. So now when I retired 12 years ago, I started to write much more here in Salem, and I also started to take art classes, and I realized I had an artistic potential that I had been, like ignoring for a long time. So the book, which I started, 3 years ago, I got inspired in an image that has always been like something that entices me, which is the spiral. That the spiral is a symbol that even from the scientific perspective says, that many of the creation has a spiral form, just like the flower that Phoebe was showing a little bit earlier, the rose, and many other things in nature. And symbolically, the spiral means like you're always moving and going upwards and touching points in your life that you get transformed in a way. And I thought that giving a title, because I asked myself, how am I going to give all these 5 sections of the book, because they have 5 parts, a connection. And again, the spiral was there telling me like a revelation, because I had done also images about the spiral with art. I said, what is telling me the word for the title? And I said, okay, it's been like a journey. So that's what I say, travesía en espiral, which means in English, spiral journey. But I thought it could be even a longer title because I thought that journey was through Earth, in love, and the universe, because the parts of my book are related to those three themes and even two more. My love for nature, for Mother Earth. I have several poems that are related to Pachamama or Gaia, which are the names, that we call Mother Earth too, or Madre Tierra in Spanish. And the cycles of life, which is practically, the spiral itself. You go through the process of being born and growing up and being an adult, and then, losing your life in this dimension, which is death or transformation. So I thought that it would be nice to include the poems that I have related to those topics within that second part. And then the third topic, it's called in the turns in love, because it's there's a lot of romantic poems that I have through life that I have written for my husband and reflecting on our relationship, long-time relationship of close to 55 years now. And then poems that are related to the spiritual growth and my spiritual search, which is that last part of the book, which I call Transcendence. So basically, that's in a nutshell, what it's the book about. And I'm going to read briefly a poem that I used as a preface in the book. It's actually not included in the table of contents. It's like an introduction, and it's called On a Spiral, and it reads like this. I have always perceived life as a spiral, a vision rooted in my childhood, navigating through alternate worlds and parallel universes, weaving together different times and spaces. In that journey, I move in search of more light and new visions. Sometimes I go back, crossing familiar points in my path. From there, I have managed to jump higher, to glimpse greater luminosity in my life and continue my spiral journey. So I thought that that gave some kind of connection to the book. And finally, I was very satisfied with the presentations that happened in Puerto Rico. They were 4 presentations. I was exhausted because we had to coordinate a lot of things. I did one in San Juan, the northern part of the island, the capital, and also another one in the southern part of the island. It was at the university, at a library, in a cultural community that has a cultural arts center for a working class community. So I was really satisfied with the way that I shared the book with the community and my old friends and my family.
Just a quick question. Well, is there any plans to translate it into English?
That's a possibility. Although I was telling Penina that I'm working on a chapbook of many of the poems that are in this book, or several poems that are in this book already. And because I have them already translated, or some of those poems I have written them in English originally. Then I translated them into Spanish, and they are in this book in Spanish. Because, I do back and forth kind of writing and translation. So I don't know, I have to make the decision if I should go on to just publish the chapbook soon, at least before the year ends, or think about translating it all. So that's a question, that I have to still think about it.
Oh, you're mute. Mute.
No.
No, she is. Penina. Okay.
Penina.
Penina.
Nina, would you like to read a woman of color I am, or would you like me to talk a little bit about my process or
Yes, why don't you go on, Penina, and then I can come back for that.
and then you can,
Oh,
I would really love to hear a woman of color I am. So actually just go ahead, Nitza, and read it.
yes,
yeah.
okay. So I should make the comment that A Woman of Color I Am is a poem that I wrote here in Salem, and I wrote it in English, interestingly. But in the poem, you will hear some of the phrases are in Spanish, just a few. And I wrote that poem for the first time thinking that I was, or I am, a woman of color. I didn't identify myself as a woman of color in Puerto Rico because we don't have those types of, divisions of perceptions of who is lighter or darker. We feel all like, we have like a rainbow of colors, actually. And we feel that we have a little bit of everything. And so here, when I came here, obviously living in the US, it's having that awareness that we are divided somehow, not only in social classes, but or ethnicities, but the color. It's so deeply ingrained in the perception of people. So I felt obviously, like a woman of color much more here than I felt in Puerto Rico. So I just wanted to share that. So it reads A Woman of Color, and it has several parts that I called acts, like a script. Act 1. Soy una mujer de color. Mi piel es café con leche. Lighter during the winter, darker cuando el sol de verano es rey. I am a woman of color, proud of my diverse ethnic blend of Taino Indians, explorers, and migrants from Europe, Africa, and the other parts of the world. My birthplace, Boriquén, Puerto Rico, the smallest of the Greater Antilles, the warm archipelago that became my homeland ever since my mother first heard my cry. Emerald islands of valleys and mountains, scented with the saline aroma of the Atlantic and Caribbean seas, animated with the resistance of coconut palm trees. Act 2. In school, I learned my heritage was from Tainos, Spaniards, and Africans, graciously mingling in peace. My teacher rarely mentioned slavery, painful stories, genocide, and the abominable colonial power. She said we weren't white, black, or native, but an interesting mix of races. Thou it be better to have lighter skin. That was the narrative told. Be proud of the unique heritage, hospitality, and docility of Tainos, linguistic legacy of Spaniards, African drums and their rhythms. Act 3. Much later in life, I discovered my full-scale ancestral connections, like stars in the constellations. My genome from so many regions and of countless generations. Ancestors from southern, southwestern Europe, the West Mediterranean, to be more precise, Italy as a surprise, Western and Northern Africa, North America and the Andes, the Amazon and South America. Hundreds of years of lineage, a gamut of cultures and places. My DNA matched with genius ancestors, Petrarch, Copernicus, Lincoln, from I could have descended. For poetry, science, and justice inspire my thoughts, words, and deeds. Act 4. I am a woman of color. Soy una mujer de color. Connected in culture and soul to the island where I grew up. A USA colony for more than a century, with no sovereignty to push its stumbling blocks. Puerto Rico, now Puerto Pobre, a poor port, devastated by a debt crisis, hurricanes, earthquakes, and environmental injustice. I am a woman of color. Soy una mujer de color, an American citizen of second class, while I lived on the colonial grounds. But in this Northwest region, where I now live, I am a BIPOC, Latina by all means, but my essence is Boricua, aunque naciera en la luna, Boricua, even though I would have been born on the moon. Act 5. My English intonation resounds like a waterfall in the middle of the streams. A pearl of double wisdom has flourished in many ways within me. I dare to dream of a new earth with equality and peace. Poetry and art have extended my wings as I continue to soar with the north winds. Mi familia is in the center of the spiral of my being. Yet, sometimes I like to whirl beyond my origins on this sphere and breathe el momento presente, the here and now, entirely free. As I look silently through the window of my being, my identity becomes ethereal, formless, and I feel I can fly, while my spirit whispers, I am, yo soy, a woman of color, a woman of many colors, voices, and dreams.
Thank you, Phoebe. Thank you, Nitza. That was so powerful. Very, very powerful.
Thank you. Thank you for listening.
Oh my goodness, it's a pleasure. So I'm going to follow you, Nitza, a little bit about why I write and what inspires me and what I keep on my desk. This frame poem by Lucille Clifton, and I just would like to start with that.
Yes.
Won't you celebrate with me what I have shaped into a kind of a life? I had no model. Born in Babylon, both non-white and woman. What did I see to be except myself? I made it up. Here on this bridge between starshine and clay, my one hand holding tight my other hand. Come celebrate with me that every day something has tried to kill me and has failed.
Mm.
So and then I'm going to read my other poem, Wish You Could Come Back, before I would listen deeper, but I just wanted to talk what the Hawaiians call talk story. I use that phrase a lot. About like what how I became how I start writing poetry, and published a book like you, Nitza, in later in life, because I really didn't have the time to sit down and write. And poetry was okay because you could write a poem. It doesn't take like a novel or an essay that long. But as we found out later, good poetry takes months and years to write, and it's never really done. But so I just wanted to talk about like that Lucille Clifton's poem speaks to my life in so many ways, and she's written volumes and volumes, and she's probably the most famous poet in the United States. Well, one of the most famous, and she's definitely impacted who I am, or not who I am, but how I write. So I wanted to kind of just briefly talk about my heritage too. My father is from Utule, Samoa, and my mother is from here. She's Irish and French and Portuguese. So I'm what's called in my language Advocacy, which means mixed breed. I never really liked that term. And I don't think most people like to be called half breed or mixed breed, but I don't like the term, but I feel grateful that I have all this different heritage inside my body and my heart.
Mhm.
Just like you, which you mentioned in the poem, that you may have descended from definitely poets and artists, but also scientists. So I want to say that poetry is like a tool, um, um, to kind of sort out what you need to survive this life, basically for me. And I never really liked poetry because my mother, she was a poet, but she was kind of obsessed with the English poets who were always very depressed. And I was just not like, please don't read us another poem. And it wasn't until I went to UC Davis where I took a class with Inez Hernandez, and it's Native American women writers. And that's where I found Wendy Rose and Joy Harjo. And I also took a class with Gary Snyder, the practice of poetry. And he brought into our class really, really interesting people. He brought Barry Lopez, the late Barry Lopez. He brought in Philip Whalen, and he introduced us to Sanskrit and the old Chinese poets. And so it was already very expansive. It wasn't a poetry canon on just English writers. It was about writers who write about the earth and the celebration of wilderness. And so I feel like that was very important to me, and I really appreciate them. And then when I went to graduate school in my late 50s, I was introduced by experimental poets, and it was Paul Celan, Edward James, Mi Young, Mi Kim, and a Dutch writer, Ingrid Christensen. And so they played a lot with the words on the page. They played a lot with image, and different than just, iambic pentameter or the accepted, which was accepted poetry. I'm 68, so that was a long time ago, where this was all kind of breaking out with at least at Mills College. And so my book Sourcing Siapo speaks to how I could have more freedom with form. And so some of my poems are letters, some of them are news articles, some of them are I play around with the page where there's a top narrative and on the bottom there's a bottom narrative, like Craig Santo Perez does in his books. So it was very freeing to find out I was a poet. And I just want to also thank Craig Santos Perez and Brandy Nalani McDoodle, because they published Sourcing Siapo, and they're always hounding me for poems. So, and it makes me feel good because they're super supportive. And I know we don't have a lot of time, but I feel like I really wanted to speak to the fact that I want Nitza, you to say more of who your audience is and who you write for, because I think from the very, very beginning, I've always had the vision of writing for people who didn't get representation, like my mother, who had 7 children at 27,
Mhm.
and she was indoctrinated by the Catholic Church. So she was this huge intellectual giant. She studied Latin on her own, read and wrote Latin on her own. She studied all the Shakespeare's plays and all this other stuff, but she got published like in little tiny anthologies here and there, but she never really got to live that passion that you and I are living now, Nitza, even though we're in our 60s and stuff. But I feel like I hope anyway that I can be a vehicle for my ancestors, their stories that were never told on the page anyway. They have a rich, rich, rich background, oral history, which they remembered, but most of my aunts and uncles have passed, and so is my father, my grandparents. So I'm the next generation of elders, and we don't, it's heartbreaking that I don't know how to speak Samoan and know the music and poetry of that has been written in my language or my father's language. And I love hearing how you say the words in Spanish and how you speak with such authority and such endearment.
Mhm.
sounds so different than English, you know. So yeah, so it's, you know, I never do like those questions like, what inspires you? Why do you write poetry? Um, well, Joy Harjo, I like the way she says it. Who are your poetry ancestors? So poetry ancestors like hers is Adrienne Rich and some other people that she has written back and forth, like Adrienne Rich's, Audre Lorde and Adrienne Rich too. And I just find that really interesting. So I wanted to read this next poem that I wrote for my father, and it's after the poet Gabriel Kalavorkowski. I'm not saying it right, but her poem is "Wish You Could." I miss you. Wish you could come back, and so it's kind of after that format. So I'll just read it, and it's dedicated to my beloved dad. Miss you, wish you could come back, for I would listen deeper. I would love to whisk the olive oil, balsamic, pressed garlic, salt, pepper, a touch of honey, a squeeze of mustard, while we talk story about black elk, or Sitting Bull, or Galileo, or Jesus. Your teacher's long dead, but they join us for tea in your kitchen. I top the salad with a few honeysuckle flowers for fragrance, for your art. I imagine and inhale gardenias from grandfather's land in Utule, Samoa. Miss you. Wish you could come back. I would love you to witness this everlasting bounty you spoke about long before I could imagine it. Miss you. Wish you could hear this conference of birds, of survival, under the butternut, black walnut, spruce, redwood, Doug fir, dogwood, moon maple, white oak, and the native shrubs that Sandy and John planted on their land over 40 years ago. You'd spot my garden gloves here before I knew about garden gloves. How they'd protect my hands in the name of ladybug, butterfly, bumblebee, honeybee, and the hummingbirds you named humblebirds, sipping the first nectar of spring. Miss you, wish you could come back. You broke me out of my prisons, and the repeating nightmares ended. Recovery recovers what has always been there, yes? But why does it take so much to remember that I belong, that I am worthy? Here I am, beloved Father, with pen and paper, for I am your daughter on her way to where the wildflowers speak, where rivers recover for Chinook, white bass, rainbow trout, and sturgeon, where ocean bottoms restore, where eelgrass flourishes, where Diogenes crabs have the chance to breed and slumber, where jeweled treasures wash ashore, where their colors do not fade. Miss you. Wish you could have seen our Siva Siva. Sister B told me you were at the wedding. Did you see my beloved? He could not hold back. His tears lifted me to trust again. For he is mine and I am his. Wish you could have met Jay. He came of age in Hawaii, studied oceanography. I thought grandmother sent Jay to me, but it is the other way around. Miss you. Wish you could come back. My sister Elle was one of the bridesmaids. I told her how I wish she was born 4 years after me, then you could have been her father. She is the youngest in our blended family of 10. Like Brother S, who knew you before I was born, he always defended you, said we needed to visit you. He knew you would always be his father. Today I say, my beloved father, my beloved California poppy blanketing the ocean cliffs, my beloved tenderloin monk, I am your daughter, unafraid.
Beautiful, Penina.
Powerful.
I love that poem. It's so touching. It speaks about how intimate of a lovely relationship you had with your father. That's awesome. I also, love my father very much, but I see in this poem such a deep kind of experience all through your life. And when you say you broke me out of my prisons and the repeating nightmares ended, Oh my goodness, that's like, wow. So liberating. So I imagine what kind of influence he had on you. It's very powerful, besides being so lovely. Thank you, Penina, for reading it so beautiful.
Yeah, I just want to tell you a quick story on that. In my culture, you're supposed to get married and have lots of children. And when I was first reunited with my dad, I hadn't seen him for 21 years, right? And he was 10 when he left. And so we're reunited with all my relatives, and he has a big family. He's the youngest of 7. And so my aunts and uncles were there. We're sitting in the living room, and my Uncle Paul asked me, Anita, how many children do you have? And I said, I don't have children. I said, I don't have any children. And then he started weeping and crying, like somebody had just socked him in the jaw or the heart or something. And he was crying really hard. And I'm like, oh my goodness, And then I was looking at him, and then all of a sudden my dad spoke up, and he spoke up in this beautiful, grounded, he's like a chief, very humble, but he's a presence. And he said, don't worry, Penina's books will be my grandchildren. And that just blew me.
Yeah,
That just made everybody silent in the room.
what a
And
statement.
yeah, and so when my books arrived, Sourcing Siapo, I wrote another poem about, I remember that memory when we were all there together. And so I wrote him a different poem, another poem. But yeah, so I feel like I'm working on my dad's memoirs now. And when I work on his stuff, I feel renewed and restored. I come from a very, not only a mixed family where my mother married my stepfather, but a very, we had a lot of violence in our house and a lot of abuse, and my stepfather was always unemployed. And so it was a real struggle. But when I came back to my father, um, I think like just this culture came back to me, Nitza, like it was just this memory of being together as a big family. I had 37 first cousins. And it was like, and then so I think about him. He's a very unusual person, but my dad, you know, when he died, I felt like there's no way I could just be in mourning and be devastated, because he left me with such a thick legacy of love,
Yeah.
And so I know when I'm writing, I'm working on one of his grandchildren. I'm working to give birth to another child.
It's very healing for
Wow.
you. Yeah. Penina, you were asking me earlier also to share a little bit about um, how do I connect with the audience or readers of my poems. And I would like just briefly to say that I like to write to express my feelings and vision of the world and ordinary things, hoping that those who read me uh, can decipher, understand, and perhaps remember one or more poems with which they identify or that they like the most. Uh, Although I have some philosophical poems, most of them can reach everyone, not only people trained in poetry or literature, but also ordinary people and candid people who find something special and meaningful in my poetry. And it could be the words, the verses, the metaphors I use, and the message they convey. Uh, I think that the appreciation of poetry like art is for everyone, because those creative expressions cultivate and express beauty. And
Yes.
yeah, and I hope my readers will be curious about how I think and feel about life and the world and the different circumstances, experiences, and challenges I have faced in life. And they will know me more deeply since I have opened my heart to others with numerous stories expressed as poems. And I imagine you feel the same way. I have shared ideas, feelings, traumas, challenges, nostalgia, longings, my hopes and dreams. And many readers may identify with some of these things. Do you think, Penina, that I should read now? What are you hiding behind your smile?
Well, I just want to respond to that real quick. I feel like everything you said, with that, like how does a reader or listener connect? I totally agree that poetry is for everybody. And I also think that if you're honest in your work, if you're telling the truth, no matter how uncomfortable the truth is, or no matter how beautiful the truth is at the moment, the reader and listener will connect. But I think for me, and I kind of found that out while we were thinking about these questions, about the first tool for me would be to tell the truth in an artistic way, and which is not easy. I mean, because there's anger, there's one you want to blame, and even anger is good. And I don't know about blaming, but maybe justice would be a better word for that. But yeah, why don't you go ahead and read What's Behind That Smile? And then I would like to read a poem too.
Okay, sure.
Go
And
ahead, go for
this
it.
is What Are You Hiding Behind Your Smile? It's a very short poem. There you are, old man, Puerto Rican, Dominican, Mexican. Who knows? I see you at a distance with your baseball cap from the Yankees, sitting on a step facing the sidewalk between 116th Street and Lexington Avenue, cerca de la Marqueta, where my friend Maria the poet lived. That intense neighborhood de ritmos antillanos, música caliente, comida sabrosa, noble people and stories grown with love and pain. Behind your eyes lives the reflection of your extended family, scattered throughout the South, the North, and the Caribbean. Your candid smile contemplates the passing of time. Your strong arms reveal turbulent paths of work in factories and docks, where you left your skin, your dreams, struggles, and sadness. Your clean gaze, just like your big arms, portray your satisfaction with a simple life, remembering the good and the bad times. Now, with the years past, your gray hair reflecting a discovered plenitude, you continue smiling, imperturbable, although inside you have 1,000 broken pieces, 1,000 pedazos rotos.
Yes, that is a very, I can really relate to that poem. In my uncles and aunts that could not, people didn't know what they were. They thought they were African American, which is fine, but they're speaking Samoan. Yeah, that is, I think that's another reason why we write, is to bring these stories to the page, that people have no idea of what an immigrant goes through. And yeah, I really love that poem. I want to hear more though. I want to hear your a little bit longer poem.
No,
Um,
I think I read them all. Now it's your turn.
well,
Oh, yeah.
no, you haven't read How Much It Hurts.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. How are we doing on time?
Yeah.
What, Phoebe, you're muted.
Let's Phoebe tell us.
It's been about 50 minutes, 45 to 50 minutes.
Okay, well, maybe we should go to our last poem. I would like to read Dream Journey.
Yes.
Then we could read Rafit Alwer's If I Must Die poem. So I will read
Yeah, that's good.
Dream Journey. Yeah. Okay. This is in 3 parts, and this is from a nightmare. I was having nightmares as the bombing was happening in Palestine. Starts with an epigraph. This is from Denise Levertov's poem, The Wings. What if, like a camel, its pure energy I store and carried humped and heavy, not black, not the terror, stupidity of a cold rage, or black only for being pent there. Denise Levertor, okay. Then I have another little epigraph starting to the poem. What if the stupidity of cold rage we've been safekeeping for a wrongdoing is keeping me, keeping you from that inheritance to take each other's hands, to laugh, to sing, to strip naked underneath that blue pretty sky and dance? Part 1. The dream was in 3 parts. Part 1. The woman shopaholics. There are about 8 of us. Paris Hilton is with us. Paris is always drunk to the point of passing out. Now she's lying inside a bin at the top of the aisles for hats and scarves. Why is she in my dream? She hires another high-class designer to design high heels that she'll never wear. She buys an island to store more and more heels, an island where it rains diamond dust. She's lost touch. She forgets what is under her nose. No longer can she remember her favorite pair. Are they the black ones with the large purple bows? How can we recognize seduction? What makes us numb? Like Paris, we buy another shade of lipstick, blush, fine leather purses, denim jackets that glitter, and of course, more shoes. In my 20s, I bragged that I could run in high heels. What is the cause of addiction? What if the cause of addiction is the pent-up stupidity of a cold rage? Stuffing piles of clothing inside drawers, closets. We only have one torso, a mouth, 2 feet, 2 legs, but the next day, the foot revs the car. In reverse, there is a poet, Denise Levertar, who is after a pure energy, hers. Part 2 in the same dream, I am cleaning house. As I clean, I think about the word solidarity, as in how crows preen each other, give and take only what they need, how they chase off raptors or falcons, how they sound the alarm for all birds. My house is my house. I am not waking up under rubble. The ceaseless bombing is not happening in my city. The black walnut is rooted. Songbirds sing. I live with a roof over my head. I am not one of the muzzled bodies wrapped tight in cellophane and blindfolded. Women are strong-legged, push, kick, bang with everything they got, hammering dents into the sides of the van, kicking in every direction like a horse. Nothing like it. Can you hear it? Unmistakable sound echoing into our home. I must wake myself up on purpose. The next night is worse. The black walnut tree where the crow couple lived for years, directly above our bed, crashes through the roof. I am buried under the rubble, but I open my eyes. I move my arms. I touch my face. No dust. I can breathe. I can breathe. It took a while to realize it was only a dream, a nightmare. Like the children and mothers in Palestine, I am not free. Sure, I can get out of bed and drive to the grocery store. I can make a list for dinner. A pasta salad, white onions, celery, parsley, artichoke hearts, and olives. I can boil eggs to perfection, running cold water over the shells so the yolk doesn't turn green. I can whisk olive oil with balsamic, lightly pour on the salad. But I remember Susie when she was our guest teacher for Poetry in the Kitchen. Susie brought her grandmother's recipes, roasted the eggplant whole on the oven rack, spiced the chicken with sumac and salt, spoke about the children's refugee camps, made a poster board of photos of the children. Susie talked story about how the olive trees, when the invaders came, with bulldozers to uproot branches, butchered the olive orchards. The people being one with the land began weeping rivers of blood. Those 1,000-year-old orchards are gone, entire trunks of peace hollowed out. Sure, I can eat the salad tossed with the whole holy oil. I can swallow so much, but peace is missing. Help is missing. Help is missing, and I'm not free, and this is my house. In my house, I'm cleaning my house. We live in a 2-bedroom, 2-bath house with a study. I am after shine. I sweep the floors, then I vacuum the floors, then I mop the floors, then I shine the floors. I spray, then rub orange cleaner onto wood surfaces, tables, bookshelves. I dust the hutch. I wash the bedding. I make the bed. It sings out clean. It sings out clean. Come take a cover and read. But when I read, nothing sinks in. I only know there is more dirt. I sweep and mop what is underneath the fridge, the washing machine, and the dryer. The house should be clean by now. Could the stupidity of a cold rage be the problem for a cleaning addict? A small revelation becomes visible. After all these years, it wasn't my cold rage. What I carried on my back was his destruction. Stepfathers. It is common. I don't have to spell it out. I could not be a child. He would never be a father. And I will fly like Denise, free from the stupidity of a cold rage that wasn't mine to begin with. Part 3 in the same dream. I am at a conference. I'm walking down a long hall to a large conference room where I'm with the indigenous people of Alaska. I've been told the North represents hardship cleansing, where one goes to die in peace, where owls locate the spear of light in pitch black dark to sustain um,
Their chicks.
their chicks. Inside the conference, we are large in numbers, both men and women, all ages. I'm happy, giddy. One at a time, we ask questions. When I wake, I wish I could remember just one of those questions. In the dream, there is a large window, and a white raptor majestically soars by like a golden eagle. The raptor is flying with these long, flowing ribbons from his beak and his wings. The elder says, "Look how his long, delicate feathers ride inside the thermal, like a tail twirling, fluttering on a kite." We call her Kite Raptor. We watch thousands upon thousands of cackling geese, a short-eared owl flying with a vole in his talons, and for the first time I can see the shiny black-headed with the bright white crescent eye rings, a Franklin gull perched on the pole. I'm jumping up and down. The man standing next to me asks how I came to know the names of birds. I'm embarrassed to share that the Franklin gull was named after some drunken English Arctic explorer. And in the Bible, seagulls are referred to as unclean animals. But in Utah, the California gull is revered, and the people created a monument to honor them. When I see the short-eared owl, I want to run outside. All of us exit the conference room to the path toward the sea. I begin to dance as I walk, swinging my arms, stomping my feet, bowing my head. I keep time with the generosity of the earth. It seems everybody is relieved to be outside. So now I would like to read with Nitza Rifat Alier's If I Must Die. I almost feel like he was the raptor in my dream. Rifat was the beloved Palestinian poet and professor, teacher at University of Gaza. He was murdered on December 6, 2023 at 44 years old, along with his family and his sister's family. So, Nitza, are you ready?
Yes, I am.
Okay. I just want to say about this poem, it's published in 40 different languages, and it was published in 2011. Okay. If I must die,
You must leave
to tell my story,
to sell my things
to buy a piece of cloth,
and some strings,
make it white with a long tail,
so that a child somewhere in Gaza
while looking heaven in the eye,
awaiting his dad who left in a blaze,
and bid no farewell, not
not
even
even
to
to
his,
his
let's go,
flesh.
not even to himself. Seek
See the kite, my kite you made, flying up.
above, and thinks for a moment an angel is there.
Bringing back love.
If I must die,
Let it bring hope.
let it be a tale. Sorry, kind of messed up a little bit. on
No,
that.
it's okay.
Beautiful.
It's a beautiful poem. Yeah. Very touching.
I will try to publish that with it. I don't know what it seems, I see it around, that poem around so many, everywhere.
Mhm.
I don't know what the copyright is on it, but
I couldn't find it either, but I did list on the sources that I'm gonna
okay,
email to you his books.
okay.
Yeah, but I haven't found where that poem is published. So you say, Penina, we'll try to take out the part two starts.
I'll talk to you about that.
Okay.
Anyway, there's always glitches. I mean, Paul, I'm terrible about names, and Nina, I'm sorry if I pronounce your name incorrectly. Nitza and Penina, this has been a beautiful, beautiful hour, a little over an hour. I am so blown away with your creativity, your love for each other, and your love for the language that you both share and that we all share, the language of poetry. Is there anything else you want to say before I say goodbye?
I just thank Nitza and Phoebe. I thank you both for being in my life and supporting my work. And Raven Chronicles, I just want to say, is supported so many Pacific writers and always outreaches to people who are usually not included. And, I really appreciate that, Phoebe. So,
We need to do more. We're all getting kind of old in the Raven Chronicle staff, so we need to get some fresh blood in here. But love you both. I'll be talking to you later, and
Muchas gracias. Muchas gracias.
don't leave. But I'm signing off. But stay around.